Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, and welcome to Shedding the Bitch Radio, where you can discuss, debate, and get advice on how to discover and shed the bitches of fear, insecurity, self-doubt, and negative mindsets so you can realize your dreams and life purpose and create and accelerate the riches you want in life. Join us here live every Tuesday at noon Eastern and dialogue with us at 818-572-2910. You can also chat with us at Blog Talk Radio /SheddingTheBitch or share your stories on our website at SheddingTheBitch.com. Whatever the bitch is that's holding you back from living your life to the fullest, it's not worth giving up the riches in life that you deserve. So call in now and let Bernadette Bose know what's holding you back. 818-572-2910.
Good day, everyone. How are you on this, what I'll call just a glorious rainy day here in Atlanta, Georgia? We've been actually getting a couple of days worth of heavy storms, so my lovely skylight leak decided to come back and visit and create an issue for me in my house. But we need the rain to clean out the pollen and everything else that's driving many of us nuts during this season. Wherever you are around the world, morning, noon, or night, I hope it's a beautiful day for you. We have a great show in store. We're going to be talking about how to leverage radio and podcasts, not only as guests, but also should you decide that, heck, I can, Bernadette seems to have a lot of fun doing her show, and it's good exposure, and it allows me to share my expertise, and maybe I'll take a swing at that too. So we'll be getting into all of that as a way of really kind of expanding your visibility and your knowledge in regards to how to leverage this great marketing tool. Before we get there, let's see. With this rain, I have 3 dogs on top of Coco being here, but I have 3 dogs visiting me for a few days. And like I said, it's been raining constantly. And this one particular dog is a little collie. He just loves to get dirty. So even letting him out the door after 5 minutes, and he is covered head to toe. I basically have been just bathing him about 3 to 4 times a day for the last couple of days. But it's fun. It's fun. You all know how much I just love having dogs around. And the 3 of them are just sweethearts. But I'll be glad when the rain does slow and goes away and it dries up. And when they're running around, I don't have constant bathing to do. Other than that, rich news. I will be taking the road on the show as I do each year during the first week of May period. And I'll be up in Ocean City, New Jersey with my 5 sisters and a bunch of nieces, only nieces that are over 21, even though I have about 16 nieces. They have to be over 21 because we get a little crazy in Ocean City, New Jersey, if you can imagine that. So I'll take you on the road with me, and we'll be having our Ask Bernadette episode. So ask me anything about your business, career, life. Post it on Facebook or Twitter. You can also go out to LinkedIn. I get a lot of direct messages from LinkedIn. Or you can send me an email directly to BernadetteBose@SheddingTheBitch.com. And then if you're new to the program, what we do is I'll answer your questions, your stories or challenges, whatever it might be, immediately when I see it online, and or if you've emailed me, I'll respond. But then what I do is that first Tuesday of every month, I bring them here to the program and dive into them that much deeper than 140 characters on Twitter or a Facebook post. And you even have an opportunity to come on live if you should want to engage and have some additional questions and that kind of thing. So first Tuesday of every month, get them posted out there. Deborah, of course, of Parker House Virtual Services, she is online, and she always keeps an eye out for your interactions. And we'll make sure that I get a hold of them so I can turn that right back around to you, and then even ask if you'd like to join the program. And, of course, while we're live between the noon hour and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, you can always call 1-818-572-2910 and talk to us live. And many of you, especially if you do have questions in regards to being a guest on a radio show or a podcast, or you want to do one yourself, Jim is, I've known Jim for a while. I just love the opportunity to get to dive deeper into his expertise, and you'll learn a little bit more about him, but you definitely want to take advantage of reaching out to him, and we'll talk about his book and a number of other ways that you can get with him. All right. So today we are talking free marketing using radio and podcasts. So you may not know, but tens of thousands of shows are released every day, and they need one thing: content. So having a guest on a radio show like yourself or a podcast is the easiest way to create that content. As well, if you have your own radio show or podcast, it's a fabulous way when you have guests on, or even if you do it solo, like our Ask Bernadette session, that also creates you content. And we'll talk about why and how that is. Guests provide an important role in the show, and in return, they get promotional opportunities, which should act as a great way for you to get free PR and free exposure to your business, free exposure to your expertise, and free exposure to your own brand. So listen for 3 to 5 things you're going to be hearing today. We're going to be talking about how to get on shows and how to do well on that show. It's not just about getting on and having a conversation. Jim's going to share with you even the super critical role of the takeaway. So what do you want to leave them with in order for them to remember you and also to then engage and interact with you? And we'll, like I mentioned, we'll touch on if you should want your own radio and podcast, what can you be doing in regards to that? So right now, for your rich question that I want you to keep in mind as we're talking, and I can guarantee you, just like every other guest, Jim will address it, but if not, you can always reach out to him. The rich question I want you to be thinking about is, how can you and your expertise, maybe the type of message that you have or the work that you do, how can you serve a radio show? Even if you were going to be on mine, what could you be bringing to the table? And if you happen to answer, I'm really not sure about that, then that it will be what Jim and I discussed, and you'll have that information by the end of the show. But how can you be leveraging yourself as a guest on a radio or podcast based on your expertise and the business that you are in, whether it is, by the way, corporate or if you're on your own? So your rich tags will be hashtag sales, hashtag radio, or hashtag shed the bitch. All right. We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, I'll introduce you to this award-winning, keep in mind, he's an award-winning nationally syndicated radio host and best-selling McGraw-Hill author. So we'll have a lot to talk about. We'll be right back.
You are listening to Shedding the Bitch Radio with Bernadette Bose. We are inspiring individuals around the globe to discover, confront, and shed their bitches of fear, insecurity, and negativity, so they can create the riches in their career, business, and life they deserve. Be sure to check out Bernadette's book, Shedding the Corporate Bitch, Shifting from Bitch to Rich in Life and Business, available on Amazon and sheddingthebitch.com. We also want to thank our sponsors, TSR Consulting, who offers a broad range of tax services for small to corporate-sized clients. Go to tsrconsulting.com to learn more. And Parker House Virtual Services, who provides virtual assistance and social media support for small to medium-sized businesses. Email Deborah Parker at deborahparker78@gmail.com for more information. To become a sponsor or advertiser on our program, email us at mediarelations@sheddingthebitch.com. Shedding the Bitch Radio airs every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time. Be sure to go to blogtalkradio.com/Shedding the Bitch Radio and follow the program for all of the updates and announcements of our guests and show topics. Now let's return to Bernadette and Shedding the Bitch Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. We are talking radio and podcasts and how that can benefit you and give you great promotional opportunities and PR for your business. And we're talking to Jim Beach. who is an SBA award-winning, nationally syndicated radio host and best-selling McGraw-Hill author. At the age of 25, Jim founded American Computer Experience and grew the company with no capital infusion to $12 million in annual revenue and to over 700 employees operating in 39 states and in 3 countries. Jim taught entrepreneurship at Georgia State University for 9 years and ranked number 1 in the business school for 12 straight semesters. He has been featured in a UPS commercial. CNN called him the Simon Cowell of small business. And corporations like Wells Fargo, Toshiba, UPS, and SunTrust have hired him as a speaker and consultant. He speaks on personal development, sales, and entrepreneurship. When Jim was promoting his first book, he self-booked about 250 radio and podcast interviews that drove sales of the book to number 9 on all of Amazon. Welcome to the program, Jim.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it greatly.
You are very welcome. And I know you're out of Atlanta. Are you in Atlanta or are you traveling somewhere today?
I'm home today, actually. So today I'm battling the pollen and the rain just like you. And I had a skylight also, Bernadette, and I'll tell you what my architect said. It came with a guarantee. My architect guaranteed that my skylight would eventually leak. So you're in the masses there.
Oh, it's so true. They're great, but at the same time, they are so annoying, and I can't tell you how many people I've had come through the house to look at the issue, and it's just, it's so frustrating. So frustrating.
I've been there too, so I feel your pain.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we dive into this conversation, I want everybody to know, go to a couple places for me if you would. Go to jimbeach.com, obviously. Go to jimbeach.com, learn all about Jim. You can even go to, and we're going to talk about why, but you can go to schoolforstartupsradio.com, and we'll talk about that as we go forward as well. You also want to be sure to follow him on Facebook and Twitter. On Facebook, you can find him as James A. Beach, and on Twitter, it's Entrepreneur Jim. But guarantee you, if you just put in Jim Beach, he's going to be the first one comes up, and you're going to find him everywhere, including on LinkedIn, where he is James A. Beach. So, Jim, first off, before we get into kind of the glut of the conversation, can you give us an idea? I mean, obviously, you have a very successful radio program yourself, syndicated, as I'd mentioned. How did you kind of land yourself into doing radio?
Well, it was the last thing I was ever thinking about. I had never put that on my bucket list. It wasn't something I was dreaming about. But as you mentioned before, I was promoting my book from McGraw-Hill. I was devastated to learn how little McGraw-Hill does for its authors. And that's not just McGraw-Hill. That's every big publishing company. They just don't do anything for you. And so I was shocked. And I went out there and started doing radio interviews. And the first time I did one, I was so nervous and didn't know how to do it, and I was scared and all that. But it went well, and I kept doing more and more and more of them. And eventually the host or the producer would say, wow, that was a really good interview. You should have a show of your own. And so many people said that it's almost like that book, The Secret. You know, if you want something hard enough, eventually it will happen. Now, I don't believe that philosophy of the book. I think that's kind of silly, to be honest. But so many people did say you should have a show of your own that eventually one of them said, and I can make that happen. Would you like to have a show of your own? And I started off doing a one-day-a-week show on an internet channel, and that grew to a daily show on the internet, and then that grew to 1 AM FM station, and eventually now we're up to 16 stations and adding another station about every other month or so.
Nice. Now, where have you seen the value and the benefit that you've gained as a result of you having your show? How has it changed your trajectory?
Well, in several different ways. First of all, in selling the books. So we all know that there is a curve, like a J curve. Imagine a big J, except it's backwards toward the right is that long tail that goes to zero as you go across time. So in week 1, you're going to sell 100 books, and in week 2, you're going to sell 50 books, and in week 3, you're going to sell 25, and in week 14, you're going to sell 2, and in week 43, you're going to sell 1 if you're lucky, and then it just bounces off, zero forever. And I was on that J-curve. I had done so many interviews, and I was needing to move on and do some other things, and that's when I added my radio show. And all of a sudden, I went back up to 100 books a week. So it was an amazing, it turned from a backwards J into a U, and my sales exploded. But then it went up to 200 books a week. And I actually got my lowest rank on Amazon. Again, a low rank is better than a high rank, right, just like golf. I got my lowest rank, which was number 9 on all of Amazon, not just in the business section, not just in my category, after the book had been out for about a year and a half or 2 years, which is unheard of. Your best sales week should happen in the month that you release the book, and mine happened almost 2 years later. And so it was a great way to keep the book alive for much longer. And the book today still bounces around 100,000 in rank or so, which is pretty darn good for a 7-year-old. The book is 7 years old now, that McGraw-Hill book. And that's an amazing rank for a 7-year-old book that, wasn't published by, one of the superstars that we've all heard of, like John Grisham or something like that, right? And so that was a huge impact. The ability to continue to promote that book and get sales out of it has been fantastic. That makes it so much easier to go out and sell more books now, to go out and sell or to get a new book contract. So when I decided to publish the book we're going to talk about today on radio, I spoke with one publisher and got a deal within like 10 minutes. It was that quick. It just happened immediately. Now, that was one big benefit. The second big benefit is my speaking career. So I have been able to increase my speaking fees tenfold. The opportunity to go out and be hired as a corporate speaker. You mentioned some of my clients. I've done about 25 engagements for Wells Fargo, and I did 2 national tours for UPS. Those happened because I was on the radio. So imagine you're putting together a great seminar or some sort of symposium, and you have 2 speakers to hire. And one is very successful and an author, and the other is very successful and an author, and a nationally syndicated radio host. Which one are you going to hire? You're going to hire the nationally syndicated radio host guy, all things else being equal. And that's happened for me. I've gotten much more opportunity to speak at a much, much higher rate. So it's been fantastic in promoting new products, also for being a speaker. And then number 3, it's been fantastic in my consulting business. So I help a lot of small businesses do some outside consulting, and those clients are equally impressed that, hey, my consultant's a national syndicated radio host, and so that is a big thing for them. And then number 4 is I get to just constantly meet great new people all the time. So as an entrepreneur, just as a business person, Bernadette, we all know that we need to continue our education. We need to continue our networking. Yep. I don't need to network anymore because I meet 2 or 3 amazing people every day that are guests on my radio show. So today, this is a silly example, but this morning I interviewed someone for my radio show. She's one of the Bachelorettes. You know that silly TV show on ABC?
Yeah.
I got to interview a Bachelorette. Now, I don't care about that, but you know who was really impressed by that was my 18-year-old daughter. She thought that was the coolest thing ever.
I bet.
And in terms of ongoing education, I don't really need to worry about ongoing education because every single day I'm interviewing the top experts on the world and getting the latest, newest information on SEO or ICO. IPO has become ICO. Instead of an initial public offering, we now have initial coin or currency offerings for the cryptocurrency. Yep. And how do I stay abreast of that? I interview the latest expert on it. Those are some of the benefits.
Nice. So if someone's sitting at home right now listening to this program, and let's go at the angle first of being a radio guest, and they're sitting there saying to themselves, okay, so one, I don't have a book to promote, and two, is there really anything that I have to share and any value I'm going to bring a radio host? What would you say to them?
Well, I would say that everyone has something to promote. Maybe it's just your core business. Maybe it's your plumbing business or your dentistry practice or whatever. There's always something to promote. Maybe it's just promoting yourself as an expert in a field. So we all have something to promote, and that it's a great way of doing it. It is by far cheaper to make your own show and produce it every week, every day, and get it out there than to go and advertise on a bunch of other shows. And there's so many benefits. We can go into all of that. We've already covered some, but there are a lot of benefits to just being out there and having the content, the social media chatter about it, all of that. Great opportunities to do it no matter what you're promoting. So, again, even if you're just a plumber, a good show on plumbing would find a niche. Every time I have to do plumbing in the house, I go online and find someone to tell me about how to do it, right? Yeah. And then another thing to consider, if you don't have a book, this will lead to the book. So I think of my career in multiple staircases. I have a consulting career, I have a coaching career, I have a speaking career, I have a radio career, I have a book career, and every time I take a step up on one of those staircases, it helps pull the other staircases up along with it. So how did I get my second book? Because of the strength of the radio show. How did I get the radio show? Because of the strength of the first book. How did I get 2 national tours for UPS? Because of the strength of the other 2 staircases. Right. So I think that they're all very symbiotic. They build off of each other. Yeah. And the easiest way in the world to write a book, and this is how I wrote the book that we're going to, the radio book that we're talking about today, is I took radio shows, got them transcribed, took those transcriptions, edited them, and that became a book. So it's a great way to multitask. You're creating multiple different versions of content. Sure. The interviews that we do on my show, not all of them, but the good ones are transcribed, and then we turn those into magazine articles, which we use to send out every week and every day via our email list. And so that's a fantastic way to get the content. How do you get the content for a daily magazine? And we now have a magazine that comes out every day. You get the content from having a radio show every day. It's very symbiotic. They work together. Nice.
And if someone wanted to get that magazine, they can. That's the schoolforstartupsradio.com, correct?
That's right. You can go there, and there's a button or the ability to add yourself to the mailing list, and that comes out, and it talks about cryptocurrencies and real estate flipping and how to avoid risk and how to raise angel funds and how to raise venture capital and how to be more creative and any cool thing that we're talking about on the show.
Right. That's awesome. Okay, everyone, schoolforstartupsradio.com. All right, so now someone says, okay, there might be something for me to share and have value on a radio show. What is the first thing? Do they need to start compiling a list? And if so, what is that what is the role of that list and where does it come from? Kind of give us a flavor for that.
Well, there's two first steps. You need to prepare a pitch package, what you're going to send to the radio host or producer. And then simultaneously, you need to be building a list of who you're going to pitch to. So there's two separate things that we sort of need to talk about them separately. So let's go through the list building first.
Okay.
I'm interested in being on small business entrepreneurship radio shows. And so on Sunday, and this is my Sunday job, when I may be watching football or maybe just hanging out at the house, or on Tuesday night when my wife and I are watching TV together, I will sit there with a laptop and just simply go through one of the platforms and search for entrepreneurship radio shows. So I will go on Mr. Google and type in entrepreneur radio show and go through, and this is critical, hundreds of listings. You know, when we go on Google, we so frequently go through the first page, and then we go, well, that's it, I'm done.
Right.
No, I will go through the first 100 pages, which is 1,000 results. And that may sound crazy and like a waste of time, but I promise you, buried in there at number 712 is a really good one. And it doesn't take that long. You find one, you click on it. At the same time, you have an Excel spreadsheet open. You go over there and copy the URL into one of the columns of the Excel spreadsheet, and then you move on. And you just keep doing that. You go through hundreds and thousands of results to build up a list. Then you go on LinkedIn and do the exact same thing. Search for radio host on LinkedIn, and you build your database of LinkedIn people that you find. Then you go on Twitter and type in radio host, and you keep going and going and going and going. You can do that for weeks and weeks and weeks, and you'll build a list that's pretty exhaustive. Then you can go on iTunes and type in business radio show, and then you change the search terms and make it, instead of searching for entrepreneur radio show, you search for business radio show, because they are fairly, there's a lot of overlap there.
Right.
I did that for a year, and at the end I developed a list of probably 2,000 radio shows in my market that would be good outlets for me. I hate to say this, but you can also outsource this. You can hire a good virtual assistant. I know you've got a great one. I use someone as well. I like to do the initial research myself and then have the virtual assistant come in and sort of do the cleanup behind me and, go and actually scour the website and find the email address of the producer. And here's a really important thing, Bernadette. The producers, the hosts, are not hiding. They are out there begging for guests. They want to get found because that's where the guests come from,
Absolutely.
So, at some point, a radio show host or a podcast host is going to be very thankful that you reached out to them, because that's one less person they had to go and find themselves.
Yes.
And so you can do that in your spare time while you're, watching TV, your second screen, just building your list. Now, about the pitch, the other piece that we mentioned was you have to start building the pitch. And the pitch needs to be something a little bit counterintuitive, a little bit sexy, a little bit provocative, something that's going to capture the attention of the host. So today for my radio show, I will probably get 10 pitches for every one spot that I have. So I'm, fairly selective. I, turn a lot of people away.
Right.
So you have to get through that. You have to create a pitch that's interesting enough that people will go, oh, that's interesting. I want to hear about that. I want to, interview that person. And so the pitch that I use for my entrepreneurship book, the McGraw-Hill book, this was my pitch. Entrepreneurship is not about creativity, risk, or passion. McGraw-Hill author available for interview. Well, if I saw that in a subject line, I would go, well, hell, no, entrepreneurship is about creativity and risk. We all know that entrepreneurs are risky people who start things they're passionate about and creative, and and so my pitch is so counterintuitive that people open it and read it and go, well, I've got to learn more about this. This guy's crazy enough to make this bold statement. And then they see, but it can't be completely BS because McGraw-Hill published it.
Correct.
And so there's a little bit of credibility there. The same way, I have a guest on my show, Eric Weinheimer, who I always, whenever he wants to be on the show, I put him on the show. And here's his pitch. The first blind man to climb Mount Everest.
Yeah.
Well, hell, how could you not want to hear about that?
Correct. Yeah.
How does a blind man, so clearly we want to talk to him.
Right.
15 words, 10 words, very sexy, provocative, grabbing attention, and
Now, are you picking up the phone and making these pitches? Or are you just simply sending emails to these producers and radio show hosts? How are you going about once you have a pitch?
Well, this is a little bit controversial. There's a lot of debate out there in the world about this. There are some people who say you have to call, and the only way is to call. Well, if you're going to call someone, that means between 9 and 5 Monday to Friday, right? Well, I'm busy 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. I have this thing called a life and a career and meetings and things to go to. I can't sit around on the phone. So I use the email method, and I've been incredibly successful with it. I got through to the producer of CNN who called me Simon Cowell of Small Business through email. Both of them work great. I find that fewer and fewer people are actually answering the telephone. The people are just don't answer the telephone anymore.
Right.
And so I am biased toward email, and so I use email. But both work.
So if you have that 2,000, say someone, is listening to this and they're like, okay, I can do that. I can compile my list. They have their list. They have their pitch. They start sending out emails. Maybe they're picking up the phone. The one thing that gets a lot of entrepreneurs is just the rejection. What can they expect as far as how many will actually say yes and how many will actually have them as a guest as opposed to, and I want to talk to you about, the rejection or the no, but what percentage of that 2,000 should they expect?
Well, it's a great question. And this is one where I want to say something provocative. This is not like dating or hitting on a girl. When you hit on a girl and she says no, you go away and you don't hit on her anymore, right? That's the socially accepted thing now. No means no.
Right.
Except when you're trying to get on the radio. No means not this week. Circumstances change. And next week you could be a great guest for a show that's rejected you 5 times.
Yeah.
So at the very beginning, when you're still perfecting your pitch, I think you'd be very successful to get 10% of the people you contact to get on those shows. As you get better at it and you get your pitch better, you can get up to 25, 30%, I think. Yeah. So the numbers are small. That's why it's a numbers game. You want to build as big a list as possible and reach out to as many people as possible. Right.
And I love your whole take on the no because it has to do with anything in regards to sales. Is you just might have hit them at the wrong time and they're not ready. They're not relating to, they don't have the issue that you're able to address, and therefore you should never just shut the door. You should always just kind of keep them in the funnel and continue to work with them and find a time that might, actually pique their interest. Love that.
Right. Yeah, so 2 examples. Early May is Small Business Week. So you should approach, generic radio shows that are not necessarily about business and say, hey, did you know that May 1st is Small Business Week? And I would be a great host to talk about that. So you changed your pitch and now you have the opportunity to appeal on a topical basis. Or a month ago when Facebook was all the rage and Zuckerberg was on Capitol Hill testifying, you say, hey, I am a social media expert and I would love to give you my 3 cents on what Zuckerberg and Facebook were doing. And therefore, instead of going with a generic pitch, you're applying to something that's immediate, something in the news.
Right.
And, you know, a station, say, that does generic news talk, the station that talks about the weather and the traffic every 8 minutes, those stations need to talk about Zuckerberg. And they would love to have a social media host come on, or a social media guru come on and be the guest. It makes their job easier.
Absolutely, absolutely. Awesome. All right. So we have a lot more to talk about, everyone. When we get back, we're going to take a short break. When we get back, I want to talk to Jim and get his insights on. So now you've gotten a yes, woohoo, and you're going to be a guest. How do you prepare for it? How do you ensure that, you have an interview that sells something? As Jim mentioned, it doesn't mean it has to be a book. Sell something, and then talk about just how to ensure a very successful guest appearance or having your own show, a successful show. So we will be right back with Jim Beach.
You are listening to Shedding the Bitch Radio with Bernadette Bose. We are inspiring individuals around the globe to discover, confront, and shed their bitches of fear, insecurity, and negativity so they can create the riches in their career, business, and life they deserve. Be sure to check out Bernadette's book, Shedding the Corporate Bitch, Shifting from Bitch to Rich in Life and Business, available on Amazon and sheddingthebitch.com. We also want to thank our sponsors, TSR Consulting, who offers a broad range of tax services for small to corporate-sized clients. Go to tsrconsulting.com to learn more. And Parker House Virtual Services, who provides virtual assistance and social media support for small to medium-sized businesses. Email Deborah Parker at deborahparker78@gmail.com for more information. To become a sponsor or advertiser on our program, email us at mediarelations@sheddingthebitch.com. Shedding the Bitch Radio airs every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time. Be sure to go to blogtalkradio.com/Shedding the Bitch Radio and follow the program for all of the updates and announcements of our guests and show topics. Now let's return to Bernadette and Shedding the Bitch Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. We are talking to award-winning, nationally syndicated radio host Jim Beach. And I want to mention, we're going to be talking about his book, Free Radio and Podcast Marketing. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Free Marketing for Radio and Podcast. Correct, Jim?
We're in the middle of the naming process right now. Your guess is as good as mine. I think it's going to be something close to Free Radio and Podcast Marketing. I think that's what it's going to be. But, it's not up to me. It's up to the publisher.
Correct. Okay, so everyone, just note, June 19th is when it's coming out. So also go to schoolforstartupsradio.com to get on his mailing list, and then that way you'll also see updates in regards to that published date of June 19th. You're going to want this book, because if you even had an inkling of an idea around being a radio guest and or having your own show, then this is going to be the book for you. I mean, he booked 250 radio and podcast interviews for his own, initial book sales on his first book. So he knows what he's doing, obviously. So, Jim, we've talked about if someone decides they want to be a guest, they've honed their pitch, they've made their list, they've reached out, they've gotten some yeses. Now they're needing to get their head in the game as far as what do they need to do to have an interview that sells. What tips would you have for them?
Well, first, I want you to do some research on the guest so you know who the guest is, what type of questions they're likely to ask, the general persona of the host. So I have been on radio shows where I know that they are going to attack me. There was a guy here in Atlanta who had a show called Rusty Humphreys. He eventually got fired because he was such a jerk. But I was on his show, and I knew that around the third or fourth question, he was going to come at me personally somehow and try to make me look silly. That was just his shtick. And because I had listened to his show, knew that, I was prepared for it. And when he came out with his, you're crazy type comment, I was able to answer back quickly. I wasn't flustered, and it turned out just fine. So number one, know the host and know the show. Right. Number two, have a prepared list of questions in advance that you make available to the host, but then also that gives you the opportunity to script your answers. So I am going to be very much like a politician. I'm going to talk about what I want to, regardless of what you ask me. If you ask me, so tell me about small business, I'm going to answer with what I want to get out there. This is my time. Some interviews are only 6 minutes long. A lot of interviews are only 6 minutes long. So I have to get my key talking points out quickly. And you remember how a politician will do that. They'll say, so Mr. Clinton, tell me about the situation in Rwanda. And he'll go, well, I'm really concerned about Rwanda, but you know what I'm more concerned about is the economy in Iowa,
Exactly.
And you have to do that. You don't have much time. You need to be ready to more or less force the conversation where you want it to go. And make sure you get your talking points out. Now, Bernadette, you're awesome because you're going to have a long magazine length interview. This interview is almost an hour long, so I'm not as worried about it. I know that we'll have time to actually discuss topics with intelligence. We don't have to try to cram things into 6 minutes.
Right.
But that's an important consideration. Make sure that you get your point out regardless of what the radio show wants to talk about. Yeah. And then number three, you need to position yourself to have some sort of ask at the end. Don't just go on and say, oh, I have this great book, I have this great book, I have this great book. That's not enough. You need to collect the email address somehow. You need to have some way of interacting with the listeners on an ongoing basis. And so that's another way that you're fantastic. You're pushing people to go to the website and get on my email list. I appreciate that, and that's awesome of you. That's a wonderful thing for a host to do. And so you have to be prepared for that. And the normal way of doing it is to have a free giveaway, right? If you get on my email list, I will send you the first chapter of my book or something like that. Well, I'm going to send you a magazine every day. I'm going to send you a bunch of stuff all for free. And you don't need to worry about that with me. But for your first time, make sure you have something to give the audience in return for their email address so that you can start having a real relationship with them. We learned in marketing, you don't buy something when you've heard about it one time. You buy something after you've heard about it 7 times.
Right.
And so I might have to touch you, get my message in front of you multiple times before you're going to buy it, and the only way I can do that is if I get your email address.
Yeah.
Those are the most important things.
Awesome. And, at the same time, do you see great value? For instance, I asked my guests, I asked you, and you provided, what your Twitter handle is, Facebook handle is, email, LinkedIn, is there, should they voluntarily provide that type of information to make sure that the host can really, send them in all the different places they can reach them as a guest?
Sure. I can't imagine why you wouldn't be providing that. You're being on radio not to hide, but to promote yourself and get out there. So yes, you want to be available on all of those platforms and be able to send the listeners to whatever platform the listeners are happy with. So I know, for instance, that I don't get many customers off of Facebook. My customers do not come through Facebook. And so that's sort of tangential to me. That's the least
Sure.
important thing to me. I get
Sure.
my expensive customers, the people who pay me tens of thousands of dollars, through LinkedIn. So I have on my LinkedIn requests, and one of the things that, at the end of the show, the host, a good host, will say, so Jim, how can people get in contact with you? And I always say, well, look for me on LinkedIn. I accept all requests. So right now, you know that if you go to my LinkedIn profile, go ahead and connect with me. I'm going to accept your request. So, and I'm pushing people toward the platform that I happen to know that I'm going to sell more business on.
Right.
And another thing with books, you can tell people to go to Barnes and Noble. That's really good. Wonderful. I like the community spirit there, and I pray that Barnes and Noble doesn't go out of business. But listen to this. This is hugely important for all of us people selling books. Barnes and Nobles will not collect a database of the people who buy my book. I can go into a Barnes and Nobles, buy the book, and Barnes and Nobles will not know who bought it. Amazon, on the other hand, knows every single person that bought my book, their email address, and everything about them. So now, when I publish book number 2 or book number 3, Amazon is going to email every person that's a book from me and say, hey, you bought a book from Jim Beach before. He's got a new book coming out. Maybe you would like to get a copy.
Nice.
Barnes & Nobles can't do that. So I much prefer that you buy my stuff through Amazon.
Sure.
Because it's building my database. Now, I don't have access to that database. Amazon's not going to send it to me, but it exists. And when I publish my next book, Amazon will do marketing on my behalf. So I tell you to go to LinkedIn and go to Amazon to buy my stuff.
Okay, so answer me this. It's a little detour from the conversation on radio. But okay, so someone's listening to you. You're pushing them to LinkedIn. They find you at James A. Beach on LinkedIn. They send you an invite. You accept it. What do you do as a follow-up on LinkedIn? It's a question I'm asked often. What do you do to ensure that whether you're not going to know that they are linking in with you unless they make a personal note because they heard you on the radio, but what do you do in response to those that send you invitations?
Well, two things. Number one is I accept and I write them back saying, hey, I'm pleased to get to know you on LinkedIn. Let's develop a relationship. If there's ever any way I can help you, let me know. So I try to write to them and say, hello. I acknowledge that we have connected. I will admit that that's a cut and paste. I send the same thing to everybody, but at least I send something. The second thing is about once a month, I download all of my connections off of LinkedIn and put that into a spreadsheet, which includes everyone's email. Now, I do not put that email list into my email database that I hit every day, the opt-in database. That's a little bit illegal and a lot immoral. But once every year, twice a year, I will bulk email everyone on my LinkedIn list and say, hey, you and I are first-level connections on LinkedIn, and I have a new book, and I would love it if you would buy it, that kind of thing. But I only do that very, very sparingly. Right. Probably when something big is happening. So, June 19th, when this new book comes out, I will do that then and let everyone know, hey, the book is out. I'd love for you to get a copy. And then I'll also go on LinkedIn and post a lot about the book. I'll add a whole new section on my bio about it. I'll add it to the publishing thing down at the very bottom where you can list all your publications, all of those sort of things so that my LinkedIn connections see that there's a new book out.
Absolutely. All right, well, I want to ask you next, I want to ask you, we've talked about what to do when you get a radio show and how to interview really well. I want two things. What are some don'ts Be sure you don't do this if you want a successful radio interview. And then I want you to provide and give some insight to the content of the book, Free Radio and Podcast Marketing. I want to make sure we get that in there. So what would your no's be? Don't do this.
Well, my number one no is any sort of speakerphone, headphone, Skype, any of those things just drive the host crazy or the producer crazy. So right now I am speaking to you on a POTS telephone. Do you know what a POTS is, Bernadette? A plain old telephone system, a thing with a cord that goes into the wall, you know. And one of the reasons I have that phone still, and it's not a cordless phone, it's one of the old things, you know, from the 90s, is that's the highest quality. That's better quality than your cell phone. And people believe, and I don't know how the world got this idea, but people believe that Skype is as good as a telephone. I promise you it is not. That headphones sound okay. I promise you sound like you're in a barrel, right? So all of those are just horrible. You got to use an old-fashioned telephone, and you hold it up to your face. And I know it's a pain to hold it up to your face for an hour or 6 minutes or something, but you've just got to do it. There's no way around it.
Right.
So your second question goes from the very beginning, convincing you that this is a good idea, that this is a good tool. We actually talk a little bit about the economics that, you know, to advertise one day a week on a major radio station is going to cost you $10,000 versus to be a guest, you get 5 times more time for free. So we just create an economic case for why this is all a good idea. And then we worked through some of the things that we have talked about today, building your list, building your pitch, figuring out if you're going to approach via email or via telephone, figuring out what you're going to talk about, figuring out what your giveaway or your takeaway gift is. And then we even talk about in the book things that most people don't think of after the interview. What do you do after the interview? So I know for certain that some of my best connections have come after I've interviewed somebody. So I've just spent 22 minutes talking to a guest and learning all about them, and they've been talking and telling me about themselves. And then we go, oh, so that was a great interview. I sure do appreciate you being on the show. Tell me about you. And then now the guest is interested in you. Simple out of reciprocity. You know, you asked smart questions. You were an engaging host. And now you have the opportunity to develop a long-term relationship with that host and see if you can become useful to each other. Awesome. Or you can say something to the host like, hey, you know, I'm usually available at short notice. If you ever have a guest that doesn't show up and you need a guest last second, think of me. I'd love to be on your show.
Perfect.
Again. Or, hey, I have some friends that I think would also be great for your show. Can I send you a couple of introductions that might also be great guests? And now you're doing your friends a favor and you're doing the host a favor. And so you're building up, you know, all of these favors that you're doing for people that cost you nothing. And, you know, if I can get my friend on a radio show, he's going to really appreciate that. You know, that's something you can do. So there's a big opportunity after the show or the recording ends for opportunities as well. And those are some of the things we talk about in the book.
Nice. And then you made mention of, you get this type of radio show marketing for free. But what do you think about the ones, there are radio shows that charge you a fee. What do you think about those?
Yeah, I have a moral problem with those. I understand that business model. We all have to pay for this somehow. I don't do them, and I don't recommend that people do them. I think that there's too many free opportunities to pay $500 to be on one person's show, and there are some, fairly well-known big people who do that. I've just chosen personally not to participate in that.
Yeah, right. I have
You're
two.
not going to send me a bill, are you, Bernadette?
Yeah, yes. Keep your eye out for it. Actually, my invoicing mechanism's broken. No, I have to agree with you. I just never really got on board with that whole approach either. We have about a minute. Any last tips or pieces of advice for our listeners as far as using radio and podcasts for free marketing?
I just encourage everyone to do it. It's a lot easier than you think, and it's a lot more productive than you could hope for. You should start your own show, and the most important thing is reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I will help you in any way I can. Oh, and here's the great thing. If you're a small business person and you want my list of thousands of radio shows that you could appear on, if you send a request on LinkedIn, I'll send you the list that I spent a year building. I'll send it to you for free.
Nice. Do you want them to mention that you heard this on the Shedding the Bitch radio program, or?
Of course. Tell me what their bitch is, and I will send them my list for free to help reduce and kill their bitch.
There you go. Love it. All right, so that's how you get a hold of him. On LinkedIn, James A. Beach. You can't miss him when you just Google Jim Beach. He's everywhere. Go to jimbeach.com to learn more. Be sure to go to schoolforstartupsradio.com. Get on that newsletter list so he can also keep you up to date on his June 19th release of his book, Free Radio and Podcast Marketing. Jim, thank you so much for being part of the program. This has been awesome.
Thank you. You're a great host, Bernadette, and I know because I know what a bad one looks like. You're a great one.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. I love great guests. That's what it's all about, everybody. Great guests. Thanks, Jim. Stay out of the rain. Stay out of the rain.
Yes, you too. Good luck with your skylight.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, thank you. And everybody, don't forget, next Tuesday, noon Eastern time, it is Ask Me Anything. So get your questions, stories, or challenges out on Facebook, out on Twitter. Send it to me through LinkedIn. You can send it to me directly at BernadetteBose@sheddingthebitch.com, and we will address them right here on the program. And you can even call in live to 1-818-572-2910, and we'll be sure that we have a deeper dive conversation with you. Then we got some great programs coming up. I don't think it's summer yet. We're still in spring. In May and June, we have some great programs coming up. So subscribe to our program, blogtalkradio.com/sheddingthebitchradio. Be sure to follow it for all the updates. For everyone within the Shedding the Bitch community, thank you for being part of the program today. And have a rich, prosperous week. And we will talk with you right back here next Tuesday at noon Eastern time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Shedding the Bitch Radio with Bernadette Bose. Join Bernadette every Tuesday at noon Eastern as she helps you shift your bitches to riches. And the dialogue is always going on at sheddingthebitch.com. See you next week.
You still there?
I am, Jim. Thank you so much. That was fabulous.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. You are a great host. You ask great questions.
Oh, why, thank you very much. I appreciate that. You have a great week, and we'll see each other soon. Oh, and I will be talking to you about the June 21st date, unfortunately.
Okay.
All right.
We'll talk. I'll be at the next, I think there's one this Thursday. I will be there. Are you planning on being there Thursday?
I will be there. I will be there as well, so I'll see you there.
All right. Sounds good. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Bye.
Bye-bye.